For 1.4 million people, we are some of the most creative, awesome people on the face of the planet. I have a passion for female entrepreneurship. I wanted to give back to the people in my country, especially female entrepreneurs. The ability to create something out of nothing is a skill that all women have. I am a business strategist. There are way more opportunities for women than ever before, and I wanted to bring my experience and my knowledge to the table. Once we've been able to identify the problems or the challenges that you think you have, as compared to the challenges or the problems that you actually have, we offer customized solutions. I have a team of people who come on board to create synergy. I am not a Trinidadian brand. I'm a global brand that is run by a Trinidadian woman. So everywhere I turn up as a Trinidadian woman first. Hi, good evening. This is our brand new setup, and you will see more changes as the weeks go ahead. So for some of you may not know me, let me do a very quick intro. My name is Rhonda Glynn. I am the Chief Disruption Officer for Zoma Business Solutions, which is a boutique consultancy that is based in Trinidad and Tobago, but we also have a global audience. Short and to the point. What do? I work with female founders and women-owned startups to help them build, grow, and scale successful business operations using data, using systems, using processes. What we really do at Zoma is incentivize and monetize what is really a traditional model. So that's it in a nutshell. 1 minute, I gave you it. Now this evening, I want us to talk about two things. One, the changes that are coming up in our new reimagined website, and by extension, our new service deliveries, and our upcoming webinar, where we will share a little more about what we are offering now. Now, one of the things you may want to ask, why did I decide to make such a pivot after 6 years in doing something that serves a niche and also fills a gap? So let me tell you why that happened. Short story. In 2018, when I started Zoma, I recognized three things. One, and this is a very important one. One is that governments, whether Caribbean governments or corporate citizens, or you call it, you name it, would no longer be able to offer what we have traditionally referred to as permanent employment, that it would go away. One of the reasons why it would go away, it is because economically, both corporate citizens and governments could no longer sustain employing people. So we knew that what was going to happen is attrition would step in, and there would be a serious decrease in onboarding new employees. Now that seems like an enigma, because at the same time that governments and corporate citizens were making that decision, there was a serious uptick in tertiary level degreed persons. Unfortunately, there was not a needs analysis at the time to see where these people would be fit in, where there would be room would be made for these people as they became more qualified. So that's one thing we knew that was going to happen. The second thing that we knew that was going to happen, especially for female founders and women-owned startups, that the challenges of work-life balance would become untenable for some people. And we saw it happening in real time during the pandemic, where women were being asked to do 2 and 3 things at the same time. They were being asked to continue to be caregivers, whether it is for young children or aging parents, and they were also being asked to work from home. So the plate that was already full was now going to be over full. So women would now be asked to do much more with less resources. So we know that was going to happen. And the third thing that we knew that was going to happen was that the advent of technology. Now, to be quite honest, this is the reason why the tagline for my company says the future is now. Because I knew, because I had worked in a think tank for 2 years before I started my business, where we did a lot of futures analysis, and I literally saw this coming. So Zoma made a decision what would be the gap that we would fill. And that gap would be filled by incentivizing a traditional model. Now, in the Caribbean, female entrepreneurship has always been part of our shared experience. Women have always worked outside of the home. However, it was always referred to as scarcity entrepreneurship. That was just people who were out there trying to make a dollar to help pay a bill. Now, this is not a future that these people wanted for their children. So, of course, academia was the preferred pathway. However, by the time we passed into 2020 and post-pandemic 2021, we realized that being degreed was simply not enough. However, the abilities, skills, and talents that these people had, for which there was no permanent employment for, they could use those very same talents to incentivize this traditional model. So that is how Zoma came about in the first place. That was a gap that we wanted to fill, and that is a gap that we have been filling for the past 6 years. I started in 2018, we're now in 2024. So now that I've shared that with you, here unfortunately is the bad news. After 6 years, we realized that some of our products and services that we were offering in 2018, that there was a need for what we refer to as more important products and services, more timely products and services, because the demand became even more increased. So some of these products that we offered before, which was like business planning, frontline training, these things, although they would continue to be part of our signature offerings, they would now be subsumed and in some cases archived. And it was based on a survey of the operating environment and how we could continue to make a difference. And more importantly, we had to pivot when our client base was also ready to pivot. More women were choosing entrepreneurship, and there was a greater demand for tech solutions and tech-based training, because time is always your greatest asset when you are an entrepreneur. So we subsumed a lot of our products and services. But what we did, in fact, is add new services. And this is where the good news comes about. And in that good news, we decided that we would now, as I said before, we would subsume some of our existing products and services, and we would create two different arms of our services. So during the last 6 months or so, we have been doing the work. We've been doing the surveys, we've been doing the market research. We have been doing the very same thing that we train clients to also do. So we've been doing the work. And in that market research, in the surveys, and talking to clients, and sending out questionnaires, and looking at the operating environment and deciding how we're going to make a difference, these are some of the things that we came up with. These are some of, let me just open it up a little bit more so that you will see it even clearer. Okay, so let me look at it. These are some of the things that we are now seeing are becoming really, really important to our clients as they evolve, because we had to evolve because they were evolving as well. So some of the things that we are seeing now is that there is a need to attract and retain the right customers, because what we have found is that a lot of the time, and you have to bear with me because the studio is hot tonight, we had to learn how they were attracting and retaining the right customers, because one of the greatest challenges that female entrepreneurs on the whole are experiencing over and over is that many times they do not know who they are selling to. They're just creating products and services hoping that someone will purchase them. It means that every single time you are having a first time experience with a client, and that doesn't make sense because, as we both know, it is harder to attract a customer than to retain a customer. So, one of the problems that we saw in the operating environment is that there was a challenge in attracting and retaining the right customer, not just the customer, the right customer. For those businesses that were already established and had crossed the 3 to 5 year margin, which is referred to as the break even, they were now finding challenges to inspire and lead their team in this new operating environment. They were on the cusp of a digital environment, and how could they inspire and lead teams? Inspiring and leading your team also comes back down to sales. Then we saw that the challenges, how to overcome challenges and staying resilient. Entrepreneurship is tough on everybody, especially now when there are so many governmental controls, especially when there is many challenges in terms of access to financing, when there is so many challenges in terms of a highly competitive market, new entrants in the market everywhere you turn, and especially with the uptick in AI. So how could the businesses that are already established, how were they going to overcome these challenges and stay resilient in a fast moving landscape? The fourth thing that we found based on our own research and based on, as I said, observing the environment, talking to people, doing the surveys, having the focus groups, the brand identity, how to build a resilient and strong brand identity. Now, a lot of people have come to realize that personal branding is as much a thing as product or service branding. And you will see, especially on LinkedIn, you will see that there are corporate citizens, people who work for very large companies, who have now taken the mantle of becoming personal brands themselves. You see it on LinkedIn every single day. So how do you build a strong brand identity in a market where the competition at each level, at startup level, at established level, at C-suite level, where the competition is so fierce, and because your clients, your customers are now becoming very knowledgeable about what they want and what they expect to get in terms of their product and service deliverables. So these are the four things that we found. We found that attracting and retaining the right customers, inspiring and leading your team, overcoming challenges and staying resilient, and building a strong brand identity were the four major issues that businesses, both small, medium, and startup, this was a commonly held challenge. So what were we going to do about that? These were some of the solutions that they needed in order to bridge that gap. And one of them was to lead with your story and your unique value proposition. Now, the market is such that for everything that you are creating, someone is also creating it. And it's very easy as a female founder or a founder to start to feel at a disadvantage when you see, especially those who are now using the tools of social media. TikTok is now a very vibrant and important e-commerce platform. that how do I stand out in a market where basically everybody in your neck of the woods is doing the very same thing. So how can you lead? You lead with your story and your unique value proposition, because as much as people like to say that there's nothing new under the sun, then there's also your spin on things. So that's one of the things that we felt as a company, this is one of the things that we could tackle comfortably. Demonstrating your market validation and your scalability. Now, this is something that I know for a fact, this is something that a lot of small business owners, this is something that a lot of creatives find themselves challenged by. They like the process of creating, they like the joy of bringing something from ideation to product, to finished product. A lot of the time, they don't like the business aspect of business. And the business aspect of business means that you have to test your idea. Because sometimes, and it happens a lot of the time, sometimes an idea is ahead of its time. What are you going to do if you have a very viable idea, but you haven't tested it? Or that you have a product and based on customer demand, there is now a need to scale that product. What was the pathway to scalability? That happens a lot of the time in medium-sized businesses that are now desiring to up the game, to up their game, to level up. And if you do not have a pathway to that, then the tools of production, your time, your products, your processes, if they are not ready and you are not ready, then what happens is that you can very well go from novelty to obsolescence in a very short space of time. So it was important for you to test your idea or test the market to see when it is time for you to bring another product or a similar product into the market. The third one was how to present a clear financial ask and a roadmap. Now, as a business strategist that works with small business owners and startup companies, what I have found is that although most of the time women run very lean businesses and are able to turn a profit, in order for them to scale that business, it requires that they have to stop bootstrapping and they have to look for sources of funding. Many times, the market, they don't have access to that money. And the reason why they don't have access to that kind of money is because they don't know their numbers. They don't know how much money they actually need. They do not know they do not know their numbers. They don't know how to pitch. They do not know how to do a financial ask in that how much do you actually want? Because at the end of the day, all investors need an answer to two questions. What are you going to do with their money? And when are they going to get it back? And not knowing your numbers doesn't mean that you have to become an accountant. It means that you must have a clear idea of what your business is worth at any given point in time. I'll say it again. It does not mean that you have to become an accountant. It means that you have to know how much your business is worth at any given point in time. So not knowing your numbers has been a very common challenge that we see happening over and over. And if you do not know your numbers, then it is very difficult or very challenging for someone to lend you money. So with those challenges that we found, our own experience in the market and our own environmental scan, we decided to do this. And this is where the Her Startup Collective came about. Now, remember, I had said that one of the things that we had realized very early is that there was a gap. As a business owner, any business owner, this is what you have to look for. You have to find your gap and you have to find a way to fill that gap in such a way that your solution is the only solution that your targeted customers would be interested in. Because if you do not know what they need, then you cannot supply it. And if you cannot solve the problem that they are being challenged with, they will go to your competition. So, because we knew that one of the first things, based on those assumptions, one of the things that a lot of female founders was having a major problem with is finding mentorship, finding people who had already done what they were now desirous of doing, challenges that those persons had experienced, and the lessons that they could learn from, literally the breadcrumbs. That is what it was. So we created the Her Startup Collective, which would be a collective of mentorship, of actual help, of guidance, where we would meet our, our, where our services, our products and our services would be used to meet the client, which is the female founder and the woman-owned startup, where they were. Because one of the things that one of the things we heard people saying over and over is that they don't have the money and they don't have the time. Now, time is an asset that is non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. You will always have a challenge with time because you can lose money and you can get money back, but time you cannot get back. So we created the Her Startup Collective with the intention of meeting women where they were. And some of the services that we would offer in the Her Startup Collective would be these. So for the Her Startup Collective is predicated on 4 product offerings. 1, business strategy and planning toolkit. It means that you actually have something that you can start working with almost immediately. 2, mentorship and coaching network. Because as I said, it is very important for you to learn from those who have already done it. 3, funding and grant alert systems. Now, in the Caribbean, a lot of small business owners and startup companies do not realize that there are a lot of grants available for small business owners, and a grant is not a loan, it is a gift. However, if you do not know your numbers, then it is very difficult for you to, 1, know where those grants are, and 2, how to apply for them. So funding and grant alert systems would help you to find those grants and, more importantly, to create proposals and pitches that will allow you to successfully access those grants. Because, as I said before, not knowing your numbers would make financiers very, very hesitant to lend you money. And the 4th thing is the thing that I like most of all. You would have access to exclusive, expert-led workshops and webinars. If business cannot be a hustle, because at some point in time, you will end up stuck at one level and you will never be able to grow and scale. And that's the reality of it. And especially now where the digital landscape is changing so fast, if you do not step up to the plate, you will be left behind really, really fast. And those who will become more competent at the tools of business, and the tools of business are digital tools, are processes and systems. To a large extent, it is going to be AI. And if you do not become prolific and competent at those tools, video is now leading the way in terms of market demand. If you do not become competent at those tools, those who are taking the time and making the effort to become competent, they will leave you behind. And at that point in time, it will not matter how good your product or your service is. Business is not as it used to be, and it will continue to change really, really fast as we go into 2025. I think 2025, without even thinking twice about it, 2025 is going to be one of the fastest years in the history of business in terms of rapid adoption of technology. We are there. Just as I said in 2018 in our tagline, when we said that the future is now, 2025 is going to tell you those things. So it's a question of getting ready or staying ready so that you don't have to get ready. And this is the thought behind her startup collective. So to get to that level, it means that we have in fact taken the onus upon ourselves to take our clients where they need to go. We are saying this is where it's headed, this is what is needed, this is what you have to do. These are the abilities, these are the skills, this is the knowledge base that is going to be very important in order for you to survive. It has come to that. So, as I said before, we have a webinar on the 20th of this month. It is a free webinar. We are going to go into some of the challenges that our small business owners, our female founders, our women-owned startups have been encountering, some of the commonly held challenges, and we are going to prepare them to survive, to succeed, to build, to grow, to scale in 2025. And some of the things that we are going to be handling in that webinar, it is going to be on the 20th of October. It's going to be from 9 a.m. in the morning to 12. It's free. And we are going to be covering these areas. And these are the areas based on our, as I said, based on our experience, based on our own research, based on what the market is saying, based on, because it is simply not enough to have a product or a service anymore. It is simply not enough. It is now a client-facing business environment, and the client is loyal to herself or himself, not to you. So you have to meet your clients where they are. So some of the topics that we are going to be handling in that webinar will be: one, marketing and branding. As I said, how to stand out in a crowded market. Remember I said that those were one of the challenges, how to have your unique serving or strategic position, and how you can use your brand story to stand out. Because the last time I checked, purchase is still an emotional decision that people are justifying with logic. People will continue to buy. The other reason why this is important, it is because you have to meet your clients always where they are, not where you are. Build it and they will come has never been a business strategy. And as we move into 2025, you will see that it will be those who are using the tools of engagement are the ones who are going to surge forward. So don't be left behind. Again, one of the topics that we're going to be dealing with in the webinar is securing funding and the resources for women entrepreneurs. Now, in July of 2023, I did a course under the auspices of the Bank of America under Cornell University of New York, and part of that cohort was having the opportunity to speak to people who are in the grant funding business. And then I realized how many grants actually exist. I did not know what I did not know, but armed with that knowledge, I can now use that knowledge to share with the people that I serve. So securing funding, resources for women entrepreneurs, and getting ready for that funding. Because as I said before, it is important that you know your numbers. If you do not know your numbers, then it becomes very, very difficult to convince a financier or to convince a lender that you are a good financial opportunity for them. Because one of the things that people do not tell you is that they will tell you that being a sole proprietor is cheap, is good, it's a good start or a good jump off point. But if you would notice recently, you're seeing a lot of sole proprietors becoming LLCs, and there's a reason for that. Because VC money, venture capital money, will not be given to someone who is a sole proprietor. So some of you who have been sole proprietors for a long time and now looking for funding in order to scale your business or take your business to the next level, you will find that you are being hog-tied by opportunities that will no longer be available to you. So as much as registering your business is a good start, those who are in the middle of this story now, the middle of the ocean, being a sole proprietor is not enough because it is not enough money for you to go to the next level. So we're going to have a Q&A session as well. So now let us look at, this is also going to be part of the webinar. It always goes back to your why. When I started tonight, I gave you a little backstory of why Zoma came about in 2018, what was our modus operandi, what are the challenges that we found, what were the things, what made us pivot, and why we are headed in this direction, and why we changed our service delivery. So identifying your why and your niche is going to be really important. It is important that you are able to find that gap, because it is quite okay for you to serve a niche client and be financially feasible and financially successful within your niche. But your niche, you have to find it. You have to find the people who want what you have to offer as compared to your competitors. One of the things that we see happening all the time is women speaking to me or posting on social media about imposter syndrome. Now, I have my own thoughts about imposter syndrome. And it comes down to, what have you been told about yourself that you have inculcated, that you now believe to be true, and why? Because again, your imposter syndrome, and I'm just saying this, your imposter syndrome may be simply because you are measuring your success using somebody else's ruler. You may be looking at people, you may be looking at someone's chapter 20 and comparing it to your chapter 1. So we are going to deal with, how do you overcome imposter syndrome and how do you build confidence as a female-owned business? How do you build that confidence? One of the things that I have learned, and one of the things that I share very openly in a lot of my posts, a lot of my captions, especially on LinkedIn, is that it is very important the circle that you are surrounded in. If you are in the wrong circle, and you have to be intentional about it, if you are in the wrong circle, you could very well be in a cage. When you are building something, we are literally the first of the first. A lot of us are breaking generational curses. And that work is not for the weak. Because you can have all the tools, all the business tools, all the courses, all the degrees, all the qualifications. And if you do not have a winning mindset, or if you cannot get out of your own way, and more importantly, be intentional about this thing that you want to do, then it becomes a problem. And that is where your imposter syndrome is coming from. You are listening to everybody's story except your own. What do you want? How do you want to turn up in the world? What is this business going to do for you? I strongly believe that when you have a business, that business must do something for you. It must be either a legacy that you are going to pass on to your children so that by the second or third generation, you're all millionaires, or if that is not what you want, if you are quite content that at some point in time you will exit the business and sell it to someone else. Very big businesses have done that. It's a strategic choice. It's a strategic decision. You must know that this business must be able to pay your way. When I say pay your way, I mean that this business must be able to buy you a bigger house. This business must be able to buy you a bigger car. This business must be able to send your children to university. This business must be able to allow you to take a vacation. This business must be putting you in a better place. If you are not clear about what you want out of this is where imposter syndrome comes from. Because we have been conditioned to believe things that were never really true. They were never really true because if I'm a researcher by trade and you can create a hypothesis about anything, however, the data will either support the hypothesis or not, or it will point you in the direction of further research. It is very easy for us as women to think that the things that we want are not possible. But who told you that? So, this is why overcoming imposter syndrome and building confidence is going to be a really important part of this webinar. And because it is not like tonight, it is not going to be open to everybody, it's not going to be a public forum. We are going to give people the opportunity to be really open about the things that they are challenged with, and we're going to help them to find a way through. Again, building your business strategy. What do you want out of this thing? I refer to it as reverse engineering. You start with the end in mind. What do you want out of this? Not how you want the business to look at 5 years. What do you want out of this? What do you want out of this? And once you are clear about what you want out of this, then every big goal can be broken down into tasks and subtasks. So those are the areas that we are going to be covering in the webinar. The webinar, as I said before, is going to be on the 20th of October. It is going to be a free webinar. It is going to be from 9 a.m. to 12. For those of you, tomorrow I'll put up the link because everything is going to be hosted via my streaming platform, and you're going to have all the opportunity to get the tools. Now, before I close off, because I promised myself I would not stay longer than half an hour, part of what we are doing in this new iteration, and you will see it as the new website goes live in November, we are breaking it down to the Her Startup Collective, and we are going into one-on-one coaching at tiered prices. So the prices are not going to be standard. They are going to be based on where you are at every point in your journey. And it is the same thing for the Her Startup Collective. So when you come to the webinar, we'll give you an idea of what the pricing is going to look like. Those who are coming in at the very end as startups, there's going to be a different pricing for them and a different product. And we're going to help you to become successful. So that we're going to help you to build resilience, build excellence in your processes so that more money comes to the table, you're able to take part in a different level. Each level of the Startup Collective is going to be at a different price, and we are going to help you to help yourself. You say that time is the issue, we're going to be dealing with time. You say money is the issue, we're going to be dealing with money. But not doing anything or remaining stuck and telling yourself that you do not ever get the breaks or you do not ever get the opportunities or those opportunities are for other people, that's a misnomer. I am living example of the fact that you can start from anywhere and end up anywhere else. The choice is yours. The choice is yours. I have told my story on more than one occasion, on more than one platform. I left school at 4 O levels. I went back to school at 40. I gained 3 degrees by 50. I started a business at 55. And at 61, I am in the process of completing my doctorate. I am an ordinary woman who decided to do something extraordinary with my life. And if I can do it, then anybody else could do it. I'm not special. So in the Her Startup Collective, these are the things that I am going to show you. I'm literally going to show you how I did it. And the tools that I acquired, the mentorship that I acquired along the way, and I'm going to be giving this to you. The choice at the end of the day will be yours to make. I like to tell people I could have sat down and, as we say in the Caribbean, I could have sat down and taught people business, and I would have been 60 years with 4 levels. And then I would have decided, well, what am I going to do? The only thing that you have that you can be assured of is the time. And time runs out on everybody. Time runs out on everybody. I went to school and worked. I am saying that these things are entirely possible, but it begins and it ends with you and the decision to make this thing happen. This is why I usually ask clients, what do you want? Because if you are clear on your ask, then the universe will open up for you. So having said that, I am going to close off this evening. And I'm going to close off with this quote. And it's from Mindy Kaling. Mindy says, don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something, but especially not yourself. Go conquer the world. Just remember this. Why not you? Why not you? Because you are the only person, who can say to yourself whether something is or is not, something can or cannot happen. And it depends on what you want out of this. As I said before, we are going into a new deliverables in 2025. Some of the things that we offered before, they'll be gone. But the two things that are going to remain are the Her Startup Collective and our new one-on-one coaching deliverables. Don't say that we didn't tell you. Don't say that we didn't tell you. And don't be the reason, as we like to say, don't let the weapon that is being formed that is not allowing you to prosper, don't let it be you. Don't let it be you. So on that note, I thank you for your time. I thank you for the effort. A lot of people are usually surprised when I do this live, because usually I will give you everything but the kitchen sink. But this evening I'm very intentional. Tomorrow, the link for those of you who have not seen the link for the upcoming webinar, please take advantage of it, because going into 2025, all these products and services that we're offering will only be offered to members of the Her Startup Collective. Because at present, I have a Facebook group, and come the end of October, that group is going to be archived as well. It was a very good group, and those are the things now that will now be offered to people inside of the Her Startup Collective. Having said that, I thank you this evening, and let's chat soon. Goodbye.